Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Boring Show. This is episode 57 after a long hiatus, coming to you from the studios once again, which is nice, Khanh, because we've been having some technical difficulties from home.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, so we're very happy to be back here, but promise to be as boring as ever. And Khanh, in a separate series, you've been working on the Dash app or Dash shop. What's it called?
Yes, so it's called the Dash. Overall, it's MyDash. But today we're going to look at the Dash shop, which is our theoretical Dash merch shop that is within the MyDash app.
Gotcha. Yes. And I gather that we're going to be doing a little refactoring.
Yes. So in the last episode on Learn to Fly, I did some code cleanup. I made it look a lot better. I broke out some widgets, instead of having huge build methods. But I think there's still some additional work to be done, just cleaning up some of the widgets and making it more usable in other places in the app as well. So hopefully I was going to ask you to help me out with that today and try to at least make one of my widgets more reusable for future use cases.
That sounds good. I certainly love a reusable widget. Why don't you walk us through what it does in the UI and then maybe the state of the code right now?
All right, sure. Okay, so luckily I have exactly the widget that I wanted to refactor open. So we'll go through the app right now and see what it does. So the app I called Size Picker. And so if you select the product, some random product, you'll be presented with a size selector with a bunch of various sizes. So here you can see there's extra small, small, typical sizes when you go shopping. So an example here, a Dash holiday sweater. So I wrote this code just with the expectation that, this is intended to be a size picker. But as I was going through and refactoring and, talking with Fitz, I realized, well, this could possibly be reused for other, selectable options on various pieces of merchandise, such as, say, like the color. So what if we wanted to offer a Dash holiday sweater that was available in, a light blue and a dark blue, but then you also want to pick size. So right now it's called a size picker, so you wouldn't really want to use that to pick a color. So essentially we want to make this more generic and more easily reusable, and honestly overall probably just clean up the code some more. So just because right now the code is a little bit confusing, even for me going back and reviewing the code that I've written, it doesn't, sometimes I'm like, wait, what was I doing here? So that's primarily it. So I'm not sure how much time or effort this particular widget will require for refactoring, but I guess we'll find out.
Yes, that we will. Okay, so what other areas in your app are you anticipating maybe using this? That might inform some of our refactors.
Yeah, so I think the first case is just maybe adding another selector here for the colors again. And as far as other places, so we haven't built out the last few features of the app yet. So I'm actually not sure if there's anywhere else we would use it other than just, again, on the product page. But I would imagine if I were to say build out a checkout process for Dash Shop, like I would imagine, like, say, payment method, right? You could select payment method, say, for example, like you would select, was it credit card,
PayPal,
or, like Apple Pay or something like that, where you would select from there as well.
Don't forget Google Pay.
Yes, and Google Pay.
Right.
So, the various checkout payment methods,
yeah.
and I feel like we see it so often, like, at least for me, that, like, I don't think about it because it's so innate that you're like, okay, yeah, you're just clicking it.
Right.
So I'm sure there's plenty of other places we could use it. But at least for now, ideally, if we can just reuse it for the product page, that would be fantastic.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I see here in your constructor of this widget, you're accepting a size options variable.
Yeah.
And that's a map of strings and ints. Can you tell me about the keys and the values of that map as it currently stands?
Yep. So essentially with the size options, so that's just being passed down from the product page itself. So for context, originally, before I refactored it in the last episode of Learn to Fly, I had all of these widgets here just in the one build method for the product page. So essentially, I'm just passing out like the options that are available for this shirt. as well as the set size function, which is so whatever size the user selects from the selector, that gets passed back to the product page to manage there.
So the strings, I presume, are just the XS, S, ML,
Yep.
blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Are the ints just kind of 0 to some value?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like what sizes are available, essentially. So it's like the size, so say extra small, there's like 5 available.
Oh, that's the inventory.
Yes. Yep, that is the inventory.
I see. Okay. Great. So I love, by the way, the idea of, just writing a widget once that has a specific purpose, and then later realizing, well, I've maybe over-specified this functionality. I can use it elsewhere, like Khanh pointed out. And then the exercise of extracting, is separating the specifics from the kind of generic details of the widget is a great exercise. So I'm excited to do this. So the first thing, as you stated, the name size picker will no longer do.
Yes.
What should we call it?
Options picker, like something that is more generic, because we don't want it to just be size.
Right.
Right.
Now, if we scroll down into the build method of the picker state class, we see that this ultimately is some dressing around the toggle buttons.
Yes.
Which totally makes sense.
Yep.
And this toggle buttons, so what we're making kind of like a higher order widget, which is just, a widget that wraps some other widget and kind of decorates it with a little bit of functionality. It's a very fancy sounding name, but it's all it is. So we're making one of those for the toggle buttons. And I think options picker is a pretty good name. I was just wondering if we wanted to imply anything about its UI in the name.
So I was gonna call out the one thing that I did kind of a key part of the functionality for toggle buttons that I implemented in this the set state here. I think this is a big part that needs to be cleaned up, by the way.
Okay.
But essentially, the way that toggle buttons was working when I was playing around with it was that you can have multiple selections, right? So the functionality that I have set up here is that you can only select one. So you can't have multiple options selected. So I don't know if that's something we necessarily want to call out in the name itself, because the assumption is, right, like I'm the only person touching this code base, so I would know. But I'm guessing if, like, for example, if you're coming in and you're going to build out MyDash for me, like say, like I disappear and like you need to take over on MyDash, it would probably be helpful for you to know that you can only select one option using this options picker instead of selecting multiple.
Right. But now, as we make this widget more generic, do you think even that is a detail that you'd like to allow a developer, yourself, future you, someone else?
Yeah.
Do you want to expose that for configuration?
Yeah. That's a good point. I hadn't considered it. I feel like it would make sense to make it configurable.
Okay.
If we could make that, say, like, have that pass it as like a, like maybe like you could set it to true if you want it. Otherwise, just like, otherwise just default to you can select multiple. I think that would be neat to have, because otherwise, if I do end up in this situation where I want to be able to select multiple, right, then you either have to go back, refactor this to do the same thing, or you have to like make a copy and then make an entirely new widget, which is not the ideal way to do that. So I guess if we're thinking long term, yeah. But I don't know, short term, I guess it doesn't matter for right now, because I don't have a specific use case for that yet.
Okay. So maybe we won't tackle that to start. You can just kind of refactor towards some ivory tower forever. But, you may not ever actually go, may not ever use what you've just refactored for and built. So let's stick with leaving that kind of aspirational.
Okay.
And yeah, let's start performing surgery. Now, you mentioned that there's a set state function down in the state class that is in need of a little love. So can you walk us through this method?
Yes. Okay. So actually, let me jump up here and go through the
give us the tour.
The variables here that are important, right? So this, I'm just going to add comments in line so that way we can keep that straight. All right. So size is just the selected size, right? So that is the size that we have selected in the picker.
May I propose something?
Yes.
If you write a comment that clarifies a variable name, that could just be the new variable name.
That is a good point. That is a very good point.
Shall we?
Yes, let's do that. All
right.
right. So if I do this here, let's see, can I rename? Let's name that selected size.
I love it. It's thinking.
It's going.
I didn't think that it would be this slow.
I also did not think it would be this slow. It was fast. It's been fast the last time I've used it, so I'm a little concerned. Okay. All right.
Wow.
Okay, we'll take that. I'm used to that being a little bit faster, but okay. That's fine. Okay. So this is a size selector. So this is a list of Booleans that gets passed through to the toggle buttons to tell toggle buttons which option was selected.
Okay. I have another proposed name.
Yes.
For this.
Yes.
Selected sizes.
Selected sizes. All right. That is much better. All right. So let's rename this. Call it selected sizes. There you go. There we go. That one was fast. So I'm not sure what's going on.
It was just warming up.
Yeah.
Okay. Size list.
All right. Size list. So that's just the list of sizes that are available for the product.
This one gets my stamp of approval.
I think that's okay, right?
Yeah, that's a good name.
All right. Okay. So that's there. Okay. So of course, in its state, we initialize the variables here. So selected size. So that just selects whatever the first option is. That works in just essentially with every product because there's going to be at least one key in the size options. So size options, by the way, was the map that was passed through from product page. So here, selected size. So originally, I just set everything, that list of Booleans to false, nothing is selected, and then just initialize the first one to true, which means the first item is selected.
Okay.
The list of Booleans that are being passed through to toggle buttons.
Now, one to-do is jumping out at me here, and I think we could potentially leave a comment for ourselves to come back to this later. But what if the first size has no inventory?
That's a good point, yeah.
Then we're in trouble.
Yeah. Size.
Then we have pain.
Inventory.
And hurt.
Yes, that would not be fun, especially if I were the customer trying to buy an XS- holiday sweater. I'd be very sad.
Right.
All right, so we'll leave a comment there. And then the size list is just, so we take the keys from the size options, which is, X small, small, medium, and throw it in the list. So that's what that looks like.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so down here. So here, we're just going through the size options, and we're setting up the actual text, the buttons here. So those are just called text toggles.
Okay.
So essentially, I threw some padding on there just for stylistic purposes, and then otherwise it's just the value, so XS, small, medium, and then I added some style on there, just styling the color of the text. But that's pretty much it.
Pretty standard. Love it.
And then at the bottom here, we return the toggle buttons. So the children are the text toggles that we just built up here. And then is selected, pass through those selected sizes, the list of Booleans. And then on pressed, we get the index. And so I set the state. So here, this is where it's going to be fun to go through and understand. So here, it's basically saying, so if the list of the selected sizes, so if it's more than one, it's the length of this list is greater than 1, then you set everything in selected sizes to equal to false. So that's essentially, so if, say, I had extra small selected, and I say I clicked large, right? I want to make sure I reset. Yeah, regardless of what is currently selected, I want to set it all to just to false. And then then I take whichever index that I selected at that index, set it to the opposite, the inverse.
Now we know, so one thing, this line will kind of always do what you want, but it's a little, it's interesting. Oh, we're outside of that if statement. Nope, sorry. Keep going. I love it.
Okay. All right.
In my brain, we were still in the universe of line 249. Or do you have line numbers up? That's not being recorded for folks.
That would be important. Where did my line numbers go?
I don't know. But line 249 is the list.generate call. And I had just thought that line was guaranteed to have just run.
Oh, okay.
But it isn't. So, okay, keep going.
All right, hold on. Let me see where my line numbers are. How did I lose my line numbers? This is a little concerning.
I don't know.
I don't know what happened to my line numbers. Please hold while we take care of this technical difficulty.
We're back with nothing fixed.
Still same as we were before.
Great.
Okay.
Now, you refreshed the app while we were gone.
Yes.
And you don't like something?
Yes, I think we...
Oh, we just need a hot restart. We changed the name of a variable.
Yeah, we changed the selected size.
But init state won't be rerun.
Up here. Yeah, let me run.
Just the green...
So here, restart.
Yeah. All right. Back to the thing.
There we go. All right, we're back. All right, okay. So we're back down here. Right.
Okay, so we were walking through this function. So you flip the selected index, that makes sense. And then you're saying if the index is false, then set the first one to true. So can you walk me through that?
So the thought was we always want something to be selected. So essentially the idea was like if I selected, say, so especially for the single, so if there's only one size, so if I click this here, right, then so it'll set size 0, the first toggle to true. So if whatever I clicked was true, it was flipped to false, then I want to set whatever that first selected size was to equal to true.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but is it happening?
That's what I'm like. So I just realized here that when I click it, it should no. So it keeps this equal to the same selected.
Yeah, let's.
So this one here isn't actually working here.
Widget.setSize. Oh, what's widget.setSize?
So that is the function that was passed through. So it's throwing the selected size back to...
I thought that came down to this. Okay, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then size,
that's interesting because I believe... So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, why didn't I make this index? Right? So I should always want to keep that one that was set to false equal to true. So that's interesting. So I'm starting to think this wasn't even necessary. Perhaps I'm
suspicious of this next line, to be honest, where we say selected size equals size list at the index. So size list is...
That was the list of sizes. So it should be the same length as the selected sizes booleans.
And then where do we use selected size?
So that's just the size that we're throwing back to product.
Oh, so that basically returns to our state management universe or something.
Yeah.
I see.
That's basically just there for,
now let's look at, oh, sorry, can you scroll up a little bit? Let's look at this build method. So we pass it the buttons that you created. And then we pass it just the list of booleans. So our variable selected size, that goes back to state, that goes back to our state management solution at the bottom here, but it doesn't ever impact rendering. Is that correct?
That is true, yes. because of the way that toggle buttons work, you don't actually give it the whichever option you selected. It's just a list of whichever one's true, then that option will be selected.
So one thing we could potentially do to kind of reduce like mental clutter is actually entirely remove the selected size variable.
Yeah.
We could potentially put, where we have size list at the index, that could be
just return that value entirely.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Send that straight to setState or set size.
Yeah. Selected size. Let's double check to make sure. Yeah. I mean, in this case, right, we're just setting selected size. Yeah. I don't think we use it anywhere else that we would need to have selected size. Right. Like we set it and then we don't actually do anything with it. Okay. So let me remove this first, then plop this to here, that.
Great. And then I think at the top of the widget, all the way up
here.
Yeah, we can get rid of
this here.
Yep. And get rid of that.
Well. There.
Nice.
All right.
That's okay. Done.
Done. That's it. All right. That's it for this boring show.
It's a perfect widget.
Job done.
Okay. So the next thing, well, also we do have a little bit of a behavior issue. Do you want to try to dive into why the selections aren't working?
Yeah, let me see here. Okay, so let me save that. Let me see. So if I select, so say if I'm on large right now, select small. Or if I hit small, then this should be deselected and extra small should become selected, right? Because that's the first element.
Right.
That's interesting. If selected size index is... Let me swap the 0 index out for...
So the length is greater than...
Here.
Well, now you... Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, so if
this would basically mean once something is selected, you can't unselect it.
Yes.
Because you're saying if you've just moved the index to false, which would be like clicking an active button, and we say, not so fast.
Yeah.
And we turn it back on.
Yeah. So if it equals false, then it should equal to true.
And so what happens if you press the S right now?
Let me see here. So if I hit S there. So if that's the original functionality, right?
How about we print the selected sizes?
Yes. We're going to add print statements. So that's going to be the next thing we'll have to clean up.
Right.
All right. So print selected. I think there's an underscore here. Sizes.
Survey says. All right. What do we get here?
All right. Let's see. Output.
Okay, so that is working. Yeah, it's in the debug console.
There we go.
It's under your triple dots.
Here we are.
Okay, so we see there we've got that line of Booleans, false, 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 true, false, false. That aligns with the button.
Yep.
So now just press the L. Let's see what happens. So nothing changed.
Selected sizes.
So we do...
Index. So that makes sense, right? Because if this is... Because if we click here... So we click large, right? So this first statement sets everything to false. And then in the second line,
I see.
We set large to true.
Yeah.
And so because it's true, we wouldn't go in to this.
That sure is it.
If statement.
That sure is it. So I think zeroing out the there's a couple things we could potentially do. I had imagined if I was making a widget like this, you eventually need to have a set of Booleans because that's what the ToggleButtons widget takes. Right? So we know we owe that underlying widget a list of Booleans. But I don't know if it's the most straightforward data structure for us.
Yeah, to have it
track
detached
everything.
like that. Yeah.
Right. Because it's, it's tempting us to do things like reset the whole list.
Yeah.
Which then actually, once we try to move forward and actually process the click, we've lost what the previous state was.
Yeah.
Because we just overrode everything.
Yeah, just wiped it completely. Yeah.
So we could potentially use a set of integers that are the active things.
Yeah.
We could also lean on the fact that we inherited this as a map and just spin up another map that is strings and booleans.
Yeah.
Integers and booleans, I think is potentially what we'd want to use.
Is there a reason why you're using integers instead of a string there?
Yeah, because onPressed is giving us an integer.
Okay, so as the index, so as sort of the index for that. Okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
I see.
So are any of those jumping out at you? I say any of those, but there were only two. Do either of those seem like an interesting avenue to pursue?
I think so, yeah. So the funny part was, so originally that was how I was expecting to set things up. And then once I started looking into widgets and things I could use, it's like, oh, ToggleButtons is the thing that I want. And it turns out, okay, it takes just a list. So that's how I came up with this sort of somewhat hacky way of making this thing work. So I do really like that idea of using a different data structure. In terms of which one, though, I don't really have a preference. Like, if you have one option that you like more than the other, like, let's do that.
I think a set is nice because it will be very easy to know the size of our selected subset.
Okay.
Without having to scan the full list.
Yeah.
And computers can go over a list of 7 items very quickly. So
the idea is you probably shouldn't have that many options for, a Dash merch product. Right. As much as I'd like, Dash sweater in like every color.
Right.
All of the colors in the rainbow. I don't think that will happen.
Right. So let's try a set of integers. And the appearance of an integer in this set will indicate that option is active.
Okay. Do you want to write the code for this? I realize I've been driving this entire time. So
okay, we're testing the live share here, folks. We're using. I'm dialed into her code base remotely, so we'll see how this goes. We'll look at your screen while I type.
I love it.
Can't even believe it. It worked.
It's a Google Docs for code.
And it is. Okay, so we are replacing the selected sizes, right?
Yep.
That's what we're getting rid of.
That's the list of booleans.
So let's make it a set of ints. And these we'll still call it selected sizes. So to start, also one of my, I'm gonna leave another to-do here for us. Oh, why did the cursor do that? I'm gonna leave another to-do here for us. Allow developers, which is just us, to pass in initial values. Because maybe we're going to remember the user's preference or something.
Yeah.
So that would be good to get to. But now our selected sizes, until we allow there to be some configured initial value, our initial value will, of course, be a set of integers. Oh, wait, I left this as Boolean. Why did I do that? Set of integers. There we go. Okay, and then our selected sizes is this was the one
where we automatically pick the first one. But what if the first one has no inventory?
Right. So we'll have that is another to do. But now I think this is how we replicate the old behavior.
Yeah.
Right. Now, when we come down here, we're going to build these buttons all the same. The trick is that we still need to update. We still need to produce a list of integers. Or sorry, a list of booleans.
The booleans.
for the thing.
Yeah.
So let's make that. So we'll just kind of spin up our own here.
Yeah.
I guess we'll call it a list of booleans, which is what it is, and it'll be selected sizes. And then we'll say here, we're going to use that list.generate again for the full length of our set, which we know as size list. So we can say list.generate, and what is the syntax for this again? I deleted your...
It should be down here, so we can take this one here.
Oh, right, there it is. Yeah,
right there?
Perfect, yeah. Okay, so this takes first the size, which is size list.length, right? And then we take a function, and this gets the index. So this is right here. And then now here we're going to return true or false, whether or not our selected, or no, what are we calling it? Selected sizes. So I'm just totally shadowing that, by the way. So this will be we'll just call this active indices. So this is if our selected sizes contains the current index in this count, then it's true.
Yeah.
And that all is what we store in active indices.
Mm-hmm.
And now active indices should be able to plop right into here. And now what is this upset about? Oh, right. So we have to totally rethink setState.
Yeah.
We'll comment this code out because there are likely going to be parts of it that we care about. If nothing else, this part at the end. So let's think about how this button should work.
Yeah.
One thing toggled like add max.
Yes.
Right. So we can. Oh, sorry. What are you thinking?
So I'm thinking. So if we select. If we select an option that's already selected, that should do nothing, right? But if we select.
Well, is that what you want?
Yeah. So it would remain.
You can't deselect an item by pressing it again.
Yeah, because one item will always be selected at any given time, and if that item is already selected, like, I guess it makes sense to just not allow deselecting.
Okay, so how do you feel about this opening statement? You can't deselect an item by pressing it again.
Yep.
Can't deselect. And I like to leave comments that are kind of like the natural language explanation for the code. Like, why on earth do we write this? And it's because you can't deselect an option by pressing it again.
Okay.
Seems good?
Right. So then afterwards, it would be something like, okay, so we select a different option, then we would want to remove what's already in that set, right? Remove that index. And then add the index that had just been clicked. So this
you know what? Oh, right. I was thinking for a second here. We could really just be using a single integer.
Yeah, just to keep track.
But the point of the set was one day we might allow for pressing multiple.
Yeah.
So I've had my wires crossed a little bit here because we said we weren't going to go down that route yet.
Yeah.
But we do have some extra awkwardness here.
Yeah. That it's only one value in the set. Then we could just extend it. I figured that was what we were working towards anyway. So if we wanted to, we could just do that.
Go the whole way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could just say, I mean, it's I guess minimal effort for, extra functionality. So why not, right?
Okay. So if we kind of address that possible complexity or that like edge case, then we probably also need to, this is the moment where we handle both situations.
Yeah.
And we need to, I think, already introduce this idea of, cardinality. So if you want to go back up to the size picker.
Yep.
Up just a little bit more, So now, why don't we add a new variable? This dot allows multiple. And we can just default this to false. And then we'll have a final bool allows multiple.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're set up to actually
handle that.
Do what we're talking about, yes.
Yeah.
So let's say if not, I type, but she's got to scroll. And you're doing a very good job of keeping that, staying focused on that. Okay, so if the widget does not say that we allow multiple, that we're in the single, there can only be one Highlander situation. In this situation, I think we can just say that, oh no, we have to know whether or not, no, we can't just say. We have to also check if selected sizes dot contains the current index. Then what does this mean?
So we already check up here, right? So we return early. Oh,
you're right. Good call. So we can say here, we already know that the new number is not in the set. And actually, we just know this for everything else now.
Yeah.
Henceforth, we know that the new number is not in the set.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. And since the new number is not in the set, that means they're toggling a different number.
Yep.
Which I think means we can just say that our selected sizes is a new set.
A new set with just that index in it.
Yeah. And we could maybe be a little cute and we could say dot clear and then dot add.
Okay.
Does that work? Oh, you do have to type the parentheses. Why does clear not work? Removes all elements from the set. Oh, does clear already? No, it returns void. So I need the, we have to we have to keep cascading. Not really, but I mean, I guess really. Didn't feel like we should have had to, but okay.
That syntax does not come naturally to me. So you just introduced that to me.
Oh, the two dots?
Yes.
Oh, well, let's chat about it a little bit. So in normal times, if we said selected sizes dot clear, this returns void. So we can't chain.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing void, has no methods.
Yeah.
So we would have to make a new line of code.
New line and then do that again. Yeah.
Right. So what the cascade operator does is say, forget about the return type of the method you're actually calling. What you will actually have, and you're like at your fingertips at this point where the cursor is now is whatever you started with.
Whatever you started with. Oh,
so it's like it magically adds chaining to methods that return void. Or return, would basically return void.
Okay, that's neat. That's good to know.
Yeah, so and this is a very similar operation to if we had just said selected sizes equals a new set of integers with a new index.
Gotcha, okay.
But, people like to not reassign variables, so we'll just do this.
Cool, okay.
Now, does this fully handle the scenario where they're not allowing multiple things? I believe it does. Like there's no more code that we need to write in this if statement.
Yes, I believe so.
Because we know if they already
selected it, then you don't do anything. It's a no-op basically.
Right.
Right, and then, but if they select a different option, then we deselect whatever, because we reset it, right, with the clear, and then we add the index, which means that we select whichever one that they clicked on.
Yes. Now,
so I think that's good.
Looking ahead, I see a problem in some of the code we've written. And that is that this code is incompatible with selecting multiple things.
Yeah.
Because we will not allow, you won't be able to deselect anything. You touch it, you buy it. So
that is true.
Let's bring this guard statement down into the single universe. That's the only time that's actually true.
Okay.
If you can't select multiple things, then you also can't go down to nothing selected. And so you can't deselect the currently active thing.
Yeah.
But if we have multiple things, so that's in this else statement, then also this comment is just not really valuable anymore. So you can select multiple. So I believe that we can just say dot add.
Yep, dot add.
Index.
And then...
No, we have to check if it is in there already.
Yes.
If selected sizes. I wish there was a toggle,
Yeah.
Come on, tooltip, show me. Help. All right. Is there anything that is basically toggle? Oh, you are not getting my tooltip here.
Yes,
so
I was going to type that in just so.
Poor experience.
Toggle? No.
We're making this is bad television. All right, we'll just check. Contains the index then we are deselecting. And deselecting is allowed. So you can do this. If it has not been selected, oh yeah, my keyboard shortcuts don't work on the thing. If it was selected, remove it. Otherwise, add it. Now, what do we want to do if they select themselves all the way down to an empty set?
Yes.
Activate the first one.
Yeah. So that would hit us, that would get us to the same spot up here, right? Like what if that size has no inventory? But we could just add it for now, and when we go back to fix this up here, we can modify that as well.
What if we just don't allow them to deselect the last one?
Yeah, then that would work.
Okay. So here then we'll say before we remove it, we'll add another check. We've got to comment this. If selected sizes dot length is greater than 1, then you are able to remove. Whew. Okay. So if the item was previously selected, then we can remove it unless it is the last one. Can't have an empty button set. Come on, Peter. That'd be crazy. And lastly, if the whole thing, if it wasn't selected, of course we can have it. Previously unselected button. How does that vibing?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I have a question about syntax though. So you have like an if inside of an if statement here. Would it make sense to chain those two ifs together? Is that a syntax? Like, do you have a preference on those at all?
I have a preference because it would be, it would lead to bugs if we chained them.
Okay.
Because, well, let's think through it. Imagine that we had this code up here. So we'll just say, and this. There's an edge case where something can slip through the cracks and not behave how we want.
Okay.
So we say here, if the selected sizes contains the index and the selected sizes dot length is greater than 1, then we would remove it. But what if it contained the index and the selected size equaled 1? Then it would drop down here. And actually, this would just add it, and it already was added. So by the magic of sets, that would actually work. But it would be, I think, confusing.
Okay, I see.
But it is funny that once we got to the end, because of how sets behave, you can't have duplicates.
Yeah.
It would be fine. So there would be no bugs. Now that we've realized they'll actually all behave, your question of what we prefer is way more valid than I initially appreciated. What do you prefer?
I was just asking, just matter of opinion. I mean, I feel like I've seen people write code in like so many different ways that I just wanted to ask her, what your preference was.
So I think my preference is because this structure of code, and of course we have to pretend that this block is missing. Because this structure of code depends on the behavior of sets to be correct, I think that makes it a little dangerous.
Okay.
Someone could come in one day and be like, oh, we don't need to use a set, we could use a map.
Yeah, we could, just swap that out.
Actually,
and then
maps would be fine too, because you could just reset the key in the map. But what if they picked a terrible data structure, Khanh?
What if they came up with their own data structure and just did not mesh well with our code? Okay.
Right.
That makes sense.
Bad.
Okay.
All right. So we'll put this back. Now, why don't we run it and see if it works?
All right. Let's save this. Oh, something. Oh, wait. I need to.
Yeah, we have to do the whole,
that's what we got to do.
The whole thing.
All right. Jump over here. Down here. All right. So small.
Now, the other thing that we could test, all right, so we can't deselect, that's good. Let's just cheat real quick here and set our allows multiple default to true. And now, why don't you rebuild? I just made that change.
All right.
Set allows multiple to true as the default.
All right, I think, let me wait for this to be restarted.
We may have been able to get away with hot reload there. Not sure. Yeah, let's see how this behaves. So we're selecting multiple. And we should be able to deselect them.
Yes, there we are.
And then we just
Except for that last one, right?
All right.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. So that means we don't need this section anymore. Get rid of that.
Be gone.
All right.
Okay. We
right,
also talked about allowing an initial configuration. I think that one is pretty valuable.
Yes.
I think your customers are going to really love it.
I do want to call out one thing that we want to make sure we touch on. So allow multiple actually isn't functional right now. Like as a widget itself, it is, but as a part of the app, it is not. Because right now I'm only returning one size here in size list. So actually, I want to make sure size list if index. Okay, so we should be okay there, right? Size list.
So this is I love that you brought this up because it also hits on a to-do item that I was about to forget, which is the signature of the set size function. If you want to scroll back up to the size picker.
Yes, up here.
The first thing,
Where did I put
a little higher,
up here, yeah.
So one thing I always recommend is to specify the parameters of a type def.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know if it's really a type def, but a function signature.
Okay.
This, I don't know what the implicit signature even is if you say nothing about it, but just every time you have a function that you accept and you specify the whole signature,
okay,
an angel gets its wings. So
okay,
let's help them
out. Okay. Here, let me open up shop.dart and then let's see, size options picker. Did I not?
Well, I think it's called
what
size picker.
Size picker still. Okay, we didn't rename it yet. All right.
One day.
Size picker.
One widget.
Where did I put it?
One day.
Oh, that's. Oh no, it's still up here.
Well,
I'm losing my mind here. It's in the same file because I just pulled it out of a different.
Oh, nice.
Size picker.
But here's one thing that is nice about specifying the function signature. If we change it, the linter will tell you where you passed it in, and then the hunt will be over.
Okay.
So the old function signature that was kind of implicitly needed was a function that took one integer. But now you've pointed out that this is incompatible with our whole multiple situation. So why don't we have it take a set of integers?
Yeah, and then that way we don't even need to just pull out one value. Okay. Actually,
so let's specify that on, you don't have line numbers, unfortunately.
Yes,
but the set size, right.
Yes.
So where it says function, let's add, are you familiar with the syntax of this, by the way?
No, I'm not.
No? Okay, so we want parentheses.
All right.
And then you only specify the types. So we'll just write int. Or sorry, set of ints.
Like that.
Yeah. Great. Now we should have some upset code elsewhere because it knows that the set size that it's trying to pass in ain't this.
Okay.
And
so
I think we happen to know that it's just up
if we just go up here a little bit, here.
Great. It knows that we have a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, it used to take a string.
So it took, so we passed back the size. Oh, right.
What should it be? Maybe set of integers isn't quite right.
So I'm thinking as well about how the add to bag. So this is the add to bag logic.
Okay.
That I have for the product page. So the way that this works right now is you can't even, so if you select extra small and large, right, and you can only select the quantity. So this is why originally it was only planned to be for one, for you can only buy one configuration of product at a time, but then you can figure how many, like the amount.
Yeah. So I have a couple more thoughts. This page is not set up to use the multi-picker version.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. So we'll just have to make sure it has the allow toggles off, essentially, but then take back a set and pull out just that one item that has been selected, right? So I just have to fix that.
I think for this, say that again.
So I think add to bag just now needs to check in the set, see what, because instead of returning a size now, it's giving that set with the index, like select the index in it, right?
That's
So I have to pull
that's
that
what
out.
yeah, that's how we've currently written it.
Yeah.
We could potentially change it further, or we could make this code work with the integers.
Yeah.
Will this code be able to know what the integers are?
So that's the thing. I was thinking maybe we could handle that within the ToggleButtons, the size picker.
I agree.
Selector, just because I feel like that is it's because that logic, like the product page doesn't need to know about the set and like which index is selected, because the product page doesn't know of the available products as a set, right? Or even the index.
Exactly.
So I feel like that might be bleeding over into like things that the product page doesn't need to know about.
Totally agree. So before we actually, we used to pass a string, and then it was this set size function, right? It's both called set size in the size picker and where you create a size picker, the variable that you passed in, that was also called set size.
Yeah.
Can we look at that other set size function?
The other set size function, that is up here. Here.
There we go. Okay, so what does this do? It used to take that string, it would store it in an internal variable. Oh, this is on my screen too in theory. Oh, no, it's not. And then the quantity available, so we look that up. And then the quantity available for size. So basically just we do some bookkeeping.
Yep. Yeah.
And then that, it looks like that underscore size variable, that is is that kind of like what matters? That's the important thing?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So if our widget is capable of picking more than one of its options, then anything that talks to it is going to also need to know how to handle more than one of an option.
Yeah, if it returns, yeah.
This refactor is about to spider out into the whole universe.
Yes.
So why don't we not do it?
Yes. That sounds like a very good plan.
like we said originally. Now, what you could also do is have another wrapping component.
Yeah.
Another wrapping widget, sorry, that encompasses the size picker and exists only to, take the first thing off the set or something. And you would just use that in an instance where you aren't going to use the multiple functionality under the hood. Right? So you have this core widget, which is just a picker. All I know is how to pick things.
Picking things, yes.
One or many.
Yeah.
That's what I do. That's what I live for.
So that would be essentially the bridge between anything else that might use it and like it selects one, it manipulates, it takes back that set and takes out like the value that's selected, right? And gives whatever, like set size. A size? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
There would be exactly such a bridge.
Okay.
And in fact, why don't we do that?
Okay.
I think that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
So maybe we go back down to single size picker, size picker.
Size picker.
I'm leaking the punchline here. So I'm just gonna spitball, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We could potentially say class single size picker. And of course, we're gonna rename all of these. So this will shortly be single option picker. And this will extend I think this can just be stateless widget, of course.
Yeah.
And now here, override, I really should be using a thing, but in the share, I don't know if I have any extensions for snippets. So this will be a build method that does the stuff. Now, we know that we're going to need just kind of do all this annoying boilerplate that normally you get out of a thingamathing. Now, we're going to need the size options. So we're just going to grab those again. Required this.size options. And we're going to also get a different set size. So this is going to be required.
And that's going to be the one that's coming from...
set single size.
From the product page,
Maybe we'll call this one. And then allow multiple. We, of course, don't worry about that. So now, in our build method, we will say return a size picker.
Yep. We'll have to rename that later, but
sure will. So the size options
here.
go here. And now set size, this is where things get interesting. So set size is a new function that will take a set
of ints.
A set of ints, right? That is what we chose. And that'll be the sizes. And what are we going to do? We're going to call our new set single size and just pass it sizes the first index. Or maybe we dot first. I don't know if you can take, you can't take indices on a set potentially. Set single size. Oh, right, I do have to actually say what that is. So this is where, again, we're going to make use of the full function signature because now we're back to just an int. Is this making sense?
Yes.
But I think we'll have to cover it
so
extensively.
Just a question here. Sizes dot first. So would it make sense here to just swap this to be, say, allow multiple is false, right? I think that it defaults, right?
Yep.
Allows multiple to false. And here when we call set size, so that's single size dot sizes dot first. So this is what we're getting back. Could we just take, okay, right. So because that will only have one value anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yes, the whole point of this new kind of translation widget is to say, well, sometimes I know that the picker is going to only have one option.
Yeah.
And I don't want my whole state management universe to operate on sets that will always have one option. So in those cases, we're going to use single size picker instead.
And then
now
later on we'll have a multiple size picker or something like that.
Well, that I think could just be the raw size picker.
So we would still be passing back the... Okay.
Because if you want to use the multiple size picker, then all the state management around that widget will, of course, have to know how to deal with sets.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
The problem is that in this case, we have written everything. Well, sorry, you have written everything. I can't take credit for this.
You've written most of this, but yes.
No. You've literally written everything. In this case, we know that we just have the one. So we just want to kind of easily unwrap that set almost.
Yeah.
And move forward with that. So if we scroll back up to the spot where we use set size.
Yep. Here.
And make it
Let's go.
single size picker.
Let's see here. So here we go single size picker. What? Did I?
Oh, maybe I need to save.
Single size.
I don't know how the live share works. Yeah, let's hover over it. See what it says.
Single size picker. Yes. Okay. So we have that.
Oh, right. It's a new name of the parameter.
Oh, yes.
It's called set single size.
Set single size. Okay. Right.
So it's underlined there. Yeah. We just need. Yep. Perfect.
Single size.
Now this should. Oh, we still have the string.
Yeah. We still need to take. So.
Nice.
Here we gotta. All right. So here. So we can do this here. We set it. So instead of returning, so we return there in the build method. So
let's see. How, yeah, I think we should just change these functions to return the strings.
The strings, okay.
Yeah. Because that's what the rest of the state management stuff uses, and it'll be, I think, more straightforward to not have, innards of widgets.
Yeah, just cross over
state
into
management.
other, yeah.
So let's just change these function signatures
to
use strings instead of ints.
Okay.
And sets of strings instead of sets of ints.
Okay.
So I think like that int right there and the set single size line, yeah, that one as well. So you can change that to say string. Okay. And then up about 5 or 6 lines, there's set single size.
Set single size here.
Yep, that could be string. And then we'll go down.
To, let's see, hold on. We're in size picker, right?
Yeah, but I think we need to scroll up a little bit because we just want to start at the normal size picker.
Yes, here.
Yep. So this now takes a set of strings and the
sorry.
set size thing, the function.
Here.
Yep.
So I know previously we were using this set to figure out which one is selected.
Mhm.
So we'll have to undo that logic basically and re-implement it.
We are going to have to make
Okay.
a little tweak.
Yeah. Okay. So here.
Okay, so that's good. Now I think
Is that
everything above should be all set.
So this here. Selected size.
Oh, right. Yeah, that'll need to be
Right. That needs to be
a string.
As well.
And then it's going to be the size list dot first. So you could
Start first.
and then move it below the line below it, of course.
Yeah. Let's put this down here.
Why does that not love us? What is size list? That's a list of strings, right?
It should be. Yeah, because it's the keys, so it's like extra small.
Is it just like a null safety thing because it was late?
Fine.
Oh,
There's
still selected sizes. Yeah.
Do we miss?
It's down
a
a little bit right there.
Here.
That
Okay,
needs to
that's
be
supposed to be string.
Okay.
Okay, we're back in business.
Yep. Now
All right, so we go down
where
here.
we call at the bottom, this is all pretty good. Oh, contains indices.
So
yeah, we still want to keep indices the whole time through and then
Yeah.
just convert the indices to strings at the end.
Yeah.
Okay. So then our
So we're
selected
gonna-
sizes does still need to be integers.
So we're gonna reverse engineer this. Okay.
Yeah, so
we're
that goes
gonna
back
undo.
to 0.
All right. Okay. So if
Oh,
I
I
go
think
back
we may
here.
have gone too far.
Did I?
Let's scroll down a little bit.
Redo.
We want set size to still take strings. So single size, that's good.
Okay.
Set single size. If you scroll down a little bit,
All right.
up a little bit
Up
to
here.
set size. Yeah, this should still be a string or set of strings is
Okay.
what we're
So set
doing,
of strings.
for better or worse.
Set. All right. Set of strings. All right.
Okay. So now we go down again into the state widget.
Yep,
This is all
here.
good. And I think all we have to do now is translate
So yeah, down here, right? So when we return
there. Yes, this is what we have
Yeah.
to change.
So here it would be string.
I'm trying to find the code myself. Okay, here we are. All right, so this needs a set of strings, and our strings come from you pulled them into size list. That's just incredibly handy. So I think we can say here,
So pull.
we'll just kind of make a quick list of strings, or it's a set of
Yeah.
strings.
And then just add that.
Yeah, so these will be our selected strings. This variable name is not the best. So this will be like this.
Yep.
And
then
then
you add size list index.
yeah, so for int index in selected sizes, then here we'll say selected strings dot add size list at the index,
Yep. And then
we pass selected strings.
here we can do.
You got it?
Selected. Well, that is going to start with selected. There you go. Selected strings. There.
Great. And now that we've typed it, let's rename this to like selected string, selected size names.
Okay. Cool.
I like this little translation widget that we have.
Yeah. It works out very nicely.
I mean, maybe in the future we'll look back on it and regret every decision that we made. But for right now, I think this is probably a decent place to call it.
Yeah, I think that looks good. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well, now I have something. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, no problem. Folks, we took a widget that needed a little bit of love, worked out a few of the kinks in it, got it humming a little better, and also set it up for the future to be able to do single or multiple of its options. We didn't get to rename anything. We didn't get to that yet, but sometimes refactoring a widget is a campaign. Khanh, any closing thoughts on your end?
No, just thank you, Craig. So, I mean, originally it started out, I wrote this widget with very much like tunnel vision, and I just said, all right, I need a thing to select a size, and then I just started throwing code at VS Code basically and just went with it. So I really, really like that, things are reusable now and I can use it in other places in the app. So I think honestly, when I go back to clean up this code, I'll probably just move this like size picker, options picker widget like in the file structure. So I have a shared directory where I'm going to keep like all of the reusable widgets I might use across the app. So I think this widget now will probably belong to the shared directory because it won't just be used necessarily in the shop anymore. So that's a great kind of tool to have in the toolbox.
Nice. I love that. All right, folks. Until next time.
Farewell.